Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DMD Consortium launch. We are excited to be here with everyone that's joining us and bring you some amazing efforts that have been put together by Gino DeSimone and Paul Fugazzotto and a whole host of other people. What we want to do, you saw the bios of Gino and Paul. Everybody probably knows them, but just in case you didn't, Gino's been an industry consultant and strategist, as well as someone who's been involved at multiple levels in different companies throughout the dental implant and dental industry. He is someone who can be relied on to bring timely and important information to us at all times, and really a person who links up and brings people together. And of course, Paul Fugazzotto, a wonderful periodontist who is an educator and a brilliant clinician. Both of those guys will be coming on and sharing with you about what they put together to help us restart our practices. I'm going to start off by bringing in Gino DeSimone. So Gino, if you could join us now, let's bring you on and you can take it from there.
Okay. Am I in, Brody?
You are ready to go.
Oh, sweet. Thank you. Hey, thank you for joining us today. And thanks to Deb Wright and Brody for helping us host this meeting. A couple weeks ago, Paul and I spoke on the phone. We shared our perspectives. He is a clinician and a practice owner, and me as a dental industry professional. We obviously come from two different corners of the dental community, but we share the same concerns in this unprecedented time. His practice closed. My role was eliminated, at least for the near term. We had common clusters of questions related to safety, financial viability, our futures, and the future of dentistry.
I've got a comment.
And Paul, we'll let him jump in here.
Hi. For those of you who know me, I've been in private practice and running a practice for over 38 years. And we're in one of the most competitive areas in the country. So I have faced many challenges and done what I had to do, but I've never had a challenge like this. At this point, we're all worried about our patients, our team, ourselves, but actually dentistry as a whole. You know, Gino and I have worked together for decades, and we've come up with a lot of ideas and used them to make what we both do better and to help other people. But it became obvious very quickly that this is not something we could do alone. And as a result, we turned to people that we believe are beacons in dentistry and the dental industry to put together the DMD Consortium. Our goal is to have a vision to help ourselves, of course, get back on our feet, and to help everybody else, to help our patients, to help dentistry as a whole.
Thanks, Paul. So we're impressed by the fact that our audience today is made up of generalists, specialists, their team members. We span private practices, DSOs, dental school students, faculty, admin, folks from the dental industry side, marketing, sales, executive professionals, and leaders. My dental industry colleagues have been fueling practices with their finest products and services and are poised to do that again. Everyone's eager, as we know, to get back on to their practices and businesses and to really make a difference. So we felt the agenda was appropriate. I'm going to share that with you now. Since we're a new organization, we feel we owe it to you to first provide insights to who we are. Paul's going to provide you with our mission statement, vision, and values. I'll cover the consortium areas of expertise and the names of the people behind those areas, the army that Paul spoke of that's assembled here today to help us all. Next, we're going to share what we believe to be the latest and most impactful economic and government data points that'll serve as our backdrop upon which we build our case today. And finally, we have three key cornerstones that will be the tactical points behind what strategic phases we have in place. At the conclusion, we're going to do our best to also answer questions that are prioritized that have come in during the presentation time. So you'll see somewhere in front of you an opportunity to post questions or make comments. You know, we recognize we don't have all the answers, and to be quite honest with you, this is a plane that we're flying and building at the same time. So we're looking forward to moving ahead, and I'm going to turn it back to Paul to cover our mission, vision, and values.
Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you. Our mission statement is very straightforward. We want to provide a platform. Look, I don't read many slides, but I'm going to read this because I believe it's important. We want to provide a platform upon which the dental community, in concert with industry partners, in concert being the key phrase there, reopens and revitalizes dentistry, not to get back as we were, because that's not what we want, but to reach new heights of patient care, practice success. And we believe we can do this. This is our mission. Brody? Okay. And again, I'm not going to just read these to you. I'll give you a couple of highlights and you can read them, of course. We want to get our patients access to care right from the beginning online, right through therapy. We have true subscriber savings in various revenue streams. We want to produce a practice strong approach. And again, I'm not going to read these to you. You guys can read them yourselves. And this is what we're looking to do. Okay. What are our core values? Our core values are business, caring, continuous learning, humility, leadership, and passion. However, those are all grounded in integrity. That is the #1 core value we have, and we believe we can bring all of these, and our team can bring all of these aspects to what we're doing.
Okay. I'm going to move into what will appear to be a quilt or a checkerboard. Paul and I would also like to add humor too as a value, but we're not quite sure if we're ready to do that at the moment, but we'll get there. But for now, I'm going to segue with humility, because we learned almost immediately when we started talking with others that we were not going to be able to go it alone. We needed help. Our collective decades of experience gave us immediate access to some of the amazing leaders that are out there. But even then, we knew we didn't have all the answers. So our continuous learning value opened doors to new relationships. So the consortium quilt that you see before you became an army of truly talented people, but more importantly, caring professionals with immense experience. And if you look really closely at the slide that shows the expertise, you'll see every area that has been talked about. We polled everybody that's part of this program today, and everybody talked about safety and the related issues. They talked about getting their practice back on their feet. They talked about new ideas to grow their practice, how we can save money collectively as a consortium. All of those things have been collated, and that's what we've put together for this program launch today, and you'll see that. And the slide that's before you now are the names of those people that are behind those areas of expertise. And I have to say, up until 10 minutes before we started, there were other corporate partners and folks raising their hands saying, I want to be a part of this, and so we're excited. And they may not appear on the checkerboard at the moment, but we'll be adding them as the days go by. So, Paul, I'm going to turn it back to you to cover the next few steps.
Thank you. First of all, I have to say thanks as well. Gino and I were shocked, pleasantly shocked, by the people who stepped up and believed in what we're doing and understand the situation we're in. This is, to sound corny, this is really a round table of knights that are more than willing to do whatever they have to do and give their time and give their efforts and give their intelligence and give their vision. And with that, I would like to introduce, and it's a pleasure, Bill Ryan. Bill Ryan has been at the helm of many successful endeavors in the dental industry. I believe he's an amazing combination of realpolitik and philosophy. And on a personal level, Bill's been a friend of mine for decades, and I consider him one of the 4 or 5 mentors of my life and one of the 2 or 3 mentors of my professional career. This is an honor. Bill, do you mind talking a little bit about what you think we face as a challenge, what we need to do to overcome it, and your opinion of how the DMDC can do that?
Well, Paul, thank you so much for those kind comments. I hope you can all hear me. Good afternoon, my friends. By the way, I will be reading so I don't overrun my time, because I'm noted to be able to do that very well. Dentistry and implant dentistry in particular has been a huge part of my life for over 33 years. I was blessed starting in 1987 with Nobel Biocare to become friends with the like of P.I. Bronnemark, Thomas Albrechtsen, Dan Sullivan, Paul Krogh, and too many other great early leaders in the field of osseointegration to name. later at Straumann, I got very close to Dr. Boozer and Cochran and Wilson and Taylor, Ganellis, Fugazzotto, and many other ITI greats. As a result, I feel that I must give something back, not just to the industry, but to those great friends as well, and everything that is dear to them, and in some cases, to their memory. I have no company or team. All I have is myself, and I hope to be a strong sounding board for Gino, Paul, and others of the DMD Consortium team as they work through from today's concepts to tomorrow's details and implementation. If this is done well, and why should it not be, it will be a great help to this great profession. Now, speaking in particular to the industry participants, were I in your shoes now, as I was not terribly long ago, I truly believe that by participating in this venture, you add to the future in various ways. You will build the practices of your customers and prospects in a unique, powerful, and incredibly memorable way. You will be recognized as a true leader in the totally new and better future that is commencing very soon. The most important stakeholder, the patient in need, will receive the safest, best, and most expeditious treatment possible under what will be difficult circumstances. Lastly, and by no means least, you will help your country recreate its greatness, and you will be honoring those first responders, doctors, nurses, and others who gave their lives to bring us to the beginning of the new beginning. Thank you. Paul, over to you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, as always. I appreciate that. So what do we do now? Where do we go from now? Let's look at, we all talk about data, or data, depending on where you live, but we all talk about data today, and we don't have a lot of data. We've got numbers of unfortunates who have been stricken, and we've got estimates of what can happen. So Morgan Stanley's research, a very respected research branch of theirs, have come up with what they believe is a timeline and a pattern for what's going to happen with COVID and the post-COVID world. And again, the actual timelines are best guess right now. And the truth is, before we even get to this, that's why we did what we're doing, because it's all best guess right now. And I can't sit here and figure this out alone. And no offense to any of you, you can't sit here and figure this out alone either. That's why we tried to bring together people with varied opinions and insights to try and put all this together and have a vision and a plan. So when you look at Morgan Stanley, you can see the massive peak we're experiencing now. What they see is a lull, a secondary peak, and then continuing from there. So far, how does the DMDC align ourselves in our philosophy with this diagram? Because this is the best information out there today. Brody? Thank you. So we break it down into 3 phases, as did Morgan Stanley. Phase 2, we believe, has 2 parts to it. So we're going to tell you what we envision as the phases, but you can't hold us to these exact timelines because nobody knows the timelines. These are best guesses right now. And you've already seen in the last 2 weeks how fluid timelines are, with science, with opinions, sometimes based in science, with opinions, sometimes based in fantasy. But that's what we want to stay away from. Phase 1 is obviously the preparatory phase. This is to get us going again. We've got to get our practices set up to be safe. We've got to show that they're safe. We've got to begin patient reclamation. If you're a specialist, you've got to begin referral source reclamation. You've got to make your patients comfortable to come back in. And we have specific ways to do that. For example, in the run-up so far, I've had multiple communications with all our patient bases of different tone to the communications, getting them to feel safe. So that's step 1, opening up, starting reclamation. That's phase 1. Phase 2, we believe, breaks into 2 parts. Phase 2A, which right now is being predicted as being about a 5-month run-up, 5-month course, we see as continuing to strengthen, to enhance our efforts to reclaim our patients, to reclaim our referral sources, but also to begin to remake ourselves and our practices, to reassess in a true business-oriented, realistic manner our machine, or what has passed as our machine, to assess our protocols, to assess our team, to assess our goals and what we're doing, to quote, cut the fat if it's there, to make things more productive and more effective, to begin to institute savings on a number of fronts that we feel are crucial. Savings in supply ordering, savings in patient financing, and innovative new ways to finance patients. Because without those, nothing's going to happen, because that's going to be a reality now. Innovative ways to build our teams. Innovative protocols for cost saving and effectiveness. Innovative ways to bring in our patients, to bring in our referral sources, to bring in new referral sources. Myself and my periodontal partners have already brought in new referral sources who have contacted us because of the way we've handled things. Phase 2B, and I'm going to equate this to a marathon because my wife is a marathon runner, so I know more about marathons than I ever have. And let's equate this phase 2B to Heartbreak Hill. We can see the goal. We can see what we want, but now it gets tough. And to quote that great philosopher, Jake of the Blues Brothers, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And this is where it's time now. This is what's going to separate people with a vision from people floundering and being carried along on the river of private practice and going wherever they may. This is where we become better at everything, where we introduce innovative practice concepts, innovative ways of looking at what we're doing, innovative therapies, make ourselves better at what we do, innovative ways to connect and bring in our referral sources and our patients, ways to introduce new people, new concepts, new therapies to grow our practices. We have no interest as we go into phase 3 in getting back to the practice as it used to be. The practice as it used to be was an ineffective practice, and that old saying, we were so happy we didn't know how unhappy we were. Our goal as we go into phase 3 is to transform our practices, to transform what we do for patient care, to transform it to new heights of therapy. That's what we're looking to do at this point. Gino? Oh, excuse me. Here's Gino.
Thanks, Paul. I'll cover this slide. It relates to what the government has said in terms of phased releases. If you've read this document, it also covers the fact that elective procedures will be available again. However, you have to go into the details here because you don't know for certain whether or not it's going to be something that's going to require significant protection and safety, and it's going to be scaled up, and there's going to be other limitations. But we'll learn more of that towards the end. But that's the second part of the information and data that we have. And so what I have before you now is a slide bringing that all together. Nobody has all the answers. The concepts and the data will likely evolve and shift over time. That's why the consortium is going to be fluid. We'll keep on top of the changes and the developments for you. And the phases Paul covered are now going to be complemented by the cornerstones that we feel are going to help you take action with these phases. So if you look at the first phase slide, you'll see that we've broken it down into what the cornerstones are in the left-hand column, and then what you will receive from us and how we will work together in terms of building a plan and putting an actionable plan into place. So in each category, we have new practice principles that we're going to share with you in a playbook format, and we'll get that to you. We have things like safety checklists and team job descriptions and supply chain analysis. These are some of the things that you're going to have to do right out of the gates, if not before you open. And we'll set objectives and we'll measure your results along the way. What we've learned from going to in-classroom or in-auditorium learning to interactive and actionable learning, we have to provide you with things like this: live learning, safety first, team reset, spend wisely. And then we're going to have 2 days during the week where we allow ourselves to gather so you can ask questions, you can have open forum discussion with the consortium panel, and we will ultimately have DMDC best practices to share. Finally, there will be partners that we serve up that you may want to contact directly, and that's also going to be part of the relationship that you have as a subscriber to the consortium to be able to go further with them. And then in terms of partnering, we're going to get special opportunities. I'm going to give you an example. You're going to hear from Howard, who's the founder of Dynamic Dental Safety. He's going to be able to go into every practice, whether that be virtually or in person, and he's going to be able to identify the things that you need to do. Historically, he's done it to cover OSHA requirements, and moving forward, he's been asked to sort of help rewrite the book on this, and he's going to talk about that in a few minutes. But he's already agreed that subscribers to the consortium are going to get a 25% discount off of that service. If you move to the next slide,
I'm so happy to be here.
you'll also see that we've partnered with a company called OnDiem, and they have agreed to support us as well. I'm not sure quite how you look at your team and your practice, but based on what's happened and based on the ebbs and flows that are going to occur, there may be an opportunity to use temp to permanent approach and have a company that sort of runs the benefits for you and also takes care of payroll. It could be something that is you dial in as you need to. And we have Jeff Fogg, who's the president of that company, who's been gracious enough to become one of the members of the consortium. And there'll be more information coming. In each of these categories, we hope to have the industry partners be able to provide a TED Talk so you can see what they're, what the opportunities and the values they bring to the table to help you to prepare to open and then beyond. Moving on, we also have Green Sky Financial. I know these guys, they're terrific in terms of patient financing. Obviously, as we move forward, the credit restrictions are going to tighten because of what's happened and the fact that there's 25 million people unemployed. Hopefully we'll go back to work. But the reality is they're poised and they're specifically focused on the dental marketplace, and they have been for a while. This is an untapped resource that I think people have looked at as a reactionary approach, but we're hoping it becomes a proactive approach moving forward. And they're going to be able to work with you to put a game plan together, not only to see where it fits in, but what opportunities you may have missed historically and what you can capture moving forward when it comes to patient case acceptance as it relates to patient financing. And then I also have a company that I actually advise and I'm very close with, and I always speak very highly of, Supply Clinic. If you don't know them, these folks have basically taken the products and services, the products that you typically buy, maybe through just other distribution channels, and they work with the manufacturers. They connect them to you. You buy directly from the manufacturer, and on average, they're able to save you 30%. And I think if you looked at the average general dental practice, in speaking with the founders of that company, I know that they can save somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 a year. So again, in subscribing with us, we're going to give you access to what is critically important to open your doors, but also to do it with fiscal responsibility. And we're really going to try to save you money and sort of leverage the subscriber base that we have in working with those partners. And, you know, there have been a couple of phone calls I got before we even started where I didn't have slides, but there's a company called Mouthwatch, and I spoke with Brent Herman, who's he's the owner and founder. Terrific guy, already out of the gates. He's going to offer 10% off intraoral camera and 5% off of the software. I met a guy yesterday or 2 days ago, Steve Pollock. He basically is a merchant credit card provider, and he's done an excellent job in saving people money. I'm not sure if people pay close attention to the percentage points they pay with regards to credit cards, but he's guaranteed getting everybody down to a lowest percentage point and capping that and showing you how he can save you money month to month. And so that will be coming too. So all of these things are important from an industry partner standpoint, but it's also important for us to work together, have a playbook, and sort of assist in coaching you and providing you opportunities to be around a table and ask questions and answers. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that we go into phase 2, and this is about regaining your footing. If you remember from the slide that Paul showed, it flattens out and it looks like there's a 5 to 6 month period of time where you're going to be able to bring patients back into your practice, offer elective procedures, have your hygiene program built back in again. But there's going to be some challenges with that. We know that. We know that there's going to be restrictions on how many people you can see. There's going to be restrictions and recommendations on how you protect your team. And some of those things are going to cost money, and some of those things are going to take time. And so we're going to work very closely with you to help you figure out where we land on that. In the same format with regards to principles, interactive communication, and actionable learning, as well as, you know, some unique subscriber offerings. So I would say to you, all of the consortium industry partners and experts that we have at the table, they're going to come into the picture and then sort of fade out, but they're also going to be connected with you one-on-one to make sure you're getting what you need to get there. I will also say this, as we move into phase 2B, this is where we're going to hit that heartbreak hill that Paul talked about. Hopefully the spike won't be too bad, but knowing it's coming and knowing what we've gone through, we're going to work together to figure out how we can actually get through this together. And I think that's something that, knowing that it's here, hopefully we're going to do the right things collectively to make sure we brace for it and we're prepared for it. And then finally, the last phase is, this pandemic is behind us, and it's an opportunity for us to elevate our practices, both from a clinical standpoint, but also from, I think, an innovative standpoint. And there are other companies that are on the horizon that, from a timing standpoint, are either here now with new technology or will soon be. So I'm fortunate and honored to be part of Launchpad Medical. Those folks have a bone glue called Tetranite, and it has a lot of applications that are going to help you be more accurate and effective. And as far as patient efficacy and satisfaction, will bring us to new heights. But we need to look at those new technologies and see where they're going to play out for us. And Neosis, which is a robotics company from Miami, Florida, the thought of having a robot put an implant in is sort of crazy to think about, but it's happening. And I've been able to participate in some educational programs to see how that works. It's fascinating new technology, and it's the type of thing that everybody's going to have to look at and see where it plays a role. And finally, from a business standpoint, Paul asked me, I put an acronym up there, CRM. Wasn't quite sure what that was, but it refers to customer relationship management. Things like sales skills and how you manage your patient population moving forward in a formal way is going to matter, and we're going to try to provide training opportunities and support in that regard as well. So I'll turn it back to Paul so we can sort of begin to wrap up. Paul?
Thank you. Actually, Brody, go back one, please. A couple of things to talk about here. Gino talked very eloquently about bringing the practices to new heights, et cetera, as we get to phase 3. That only happens if phases 1 and 2 are handled properly. It's like being on a cart going down a hill. If you're going down a little molehill, you don't get as far as if you've maximized the potential of a larger hill. So phase 2 is crucial to the success of phase 3. That's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing I wanted to say was, as a dentist who runs his own practice and has always had a certain attitude, I would look at some of this and say, this sounds great, but I got to get off the phone and start calling all these industry partners and just go to them directly. What do I need these guys for? I'll go right to them directly. These people have become part of our Knights of the Round Table and have been willing to do things that are going to be exclusive to our group. So we're going to be able to take even greater advantage of their talents and the opportunities with them, which are huge, I believe. The simple fact is, we need a vision because we don't know what's going to happen. And we need a coherent vision that evolves over time and has input, not just from us, not just from the DMDC, but from other people who become members with us, because we want everybody's ideas to make this work. It's the only way it's going to work. Can you go next, Brody? Thank you. So obviously what we're going to say is for you to become part of this with us, because there's no other way to do this. And are there expenses to this? There are. But sitting here as an individual practitioner, when I look, and I don't want to say this in a bad way, it's almost a no-brainer. With the amount of savings we're going to save, as you'll see, it far outstrips everything else here. Can you go to the next one, please? Oh, before we get to Michael, actually, no, go Michael, and I'll talk after that. Go ahead. This is somebody who's going to be instrumental in making this successful. Michael?
Good afternoon. How are you? So first of all, I started in 1980 as a general dentist. In 82, there was a deep recession. 82 became AIDS, which changed the industry. When I was in dental school, we didn't do gloves. We didn't have those things. Came back, we had recession since we had the Great Recession, which we just came back from. And honestly, each time through using a phase 1 and phase 2, we actually have prospered. And that's the real key to this. In any negative response, how we jump forward will actually bring us to a tremendous value. So I think phase 1 and phase 2 become important. And for the people listening today, those are the things starting now. I mean, we've had Zoom meetings with our people. We have, new gear that we're raising and buying and doing, and communication with the patients, as Paul had said. And this becomes significant of what you do in your downtime. To be honestly, there hasn't been any downtime. We have to really market with these people and care for our people. And above all, the most important thing is to make a profit. If you don't make a profit, you can't give it away. And we do a lot of charity dentistry. It's a wonderful profession. And that's why I got involved, because I think this is a time where we're going to excel. We're going to be testing people. We're going to be the sites. The CDC has already said maybe dentistry is the #1 test site. So for the people who are ahead of the game, the next few months before anything goes, and I don't believe we're going to hit that second, third hill, because we'll be able to manage it through it. And this is very important for every individual practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael. One more thing before we go to the next point, and I'm sorry, Michael, that I almost interrupted you, is this. All of us are on the internet. All of us are reading things people are posting. And we read something recently by a practitioner talking about how terrible everything's going to be and the gloom and doom. And I was pretty much ready to dig a hole and go in underneath it, underneath the ground, because it was ridiculous. And people are looking at things the wrong way. We have been through challenges before. Our society's been through challenges before. Our country and the world have been through challenges. And this is doable. I'll give you a very minor example. I keep hearing people whining about the PPP loan from the government because you've got to use it up in 8 weeks. And what if we're not open and can't use it? It all won't be forgiven. So basically, they're complaining that the worst case scenario is that they get a loan at 1% with a 6-month grace period. I'm not going to quote anybody from my cousin Vinny, but I know the sentence I'd like to say, oh my God, what a disaster. We have a vision and a way to do it. We can do it, or we can cry. And do what Vito Corleone did and act again, or we can cry. And crying isn't going to work. It's not going to be effective. Brody. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we've tried to come up with something that's going to work for people, whether they want to try things out and see if it's going to be effective, or whether they realize we need a long-term vision and want to get more involved. We've kept this as low as we can and basically run this consortium with everybody's involvement and with all the effort involved. To me, it's a no-brainer because my supplies alone are going to save me, I don't know, 100 times this, without exaggeration, 50 times this. So basically, this is what's going to be involved to subscribe. You can test us out, or you can get on board and understand that we're all going to be in this together. Next, Brody. Next slide.
Yep.
Okay. Gino?
Yep. So let me take it from here. Thanks, Paul. I just wanted to let everybody know that we understand that safety is paramount. In fact, we have a question that's come in from the folks who are participating about the safety and the N95s. Dr. Lester, Marianne Lester, hello. If we could, when we get to Howard, if Howard might be able to address whether or not insurance is going to start covering these additional costs, and if so, how. But what we felt should be our lead subscriber event should definitely be related to safety. And Paul and I had the pleasure to meet the founder, Howard Paktovis, who's a dentist, but spent years helping people keep their practices safe from an OSHA and safety standpoint. And he and his colleagues have been called upon to help rewrite the book, as I mentioned earlier. And the company is Dynamic Dental Safety. We're very, very excited about having them be the lead presenter. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Paktovis to just share his perspective on what we've talked about so far, but specifically regarding safety moving forward. Howard?
Gino, thank you so much. First of all, I can't tell you how pleased I am to be part of a group that is addressing all of the issues that we need to go back into practice safely. And I've been doing safety in the dental field primarily for the last 30 years and have seen things change and evolve and to heights I've never, ever dreamed of. And I think all of us would agree with that, the governmental intrusion. But nevertheless, we have to do certain things. And my company, along with the DMD Consortium, is planning and addressing, and I call what we do assessing, implementing, and maintaining. And that's how we grow. We have to assess what we need. We'll put in place the plans that you need. Everyone is going to have to upgrade all their infection control protocols, all their materials, put in place airborne transmitted disease things. We have all these things ready to go, ready to customize, ready to train your staff. And the question that Gino had brought up with regard to the PPE, the N95 masks, number one, no one has really come down and said exactly what we're going to need yet. We have our finger on the pulse. We have our finger on the pulse of the insurance executives in the field, as well as the governmental executives, and we'll be the first to bring it to your attention. So use us as a resource. I'm pleased to be speaking on May 4th about the reopening and about what we're going to do. And I can't tell you how pleased I am with all the participants here today. Hope to meet all of you in person very shortly. Thank you, Gino.
Thanks, Howard. Much appreciated. I think that's a wrap for us. And what we're going to do now is we're going to move into a Q&A phase. But what I'd like to do, thanks, Brody. I think if we can just move to the next slide. Yep. So again, I mentioned that we're building the plane as we fly it, right? So we have a web domain. It's not up live yet, but it's going to go live May 1st. So if you are interested in subscribing and participating in the consortium, please do so on May 1st. We will send to everybody who's participated, we're going to send a follow-up email to you reminding you of that. If you want to take a screenshot right now of my email address and Paul's email address, you can contact us directly with questions that you may have. And I want to put it out there that even though we've listed companies and names of people, it's all happened sort of in a flurry, right? And there are others out there that are probably sitting going, hey, I may want to be part of this too. Please reach out and we'll be happy to include you. And those of you who are in practice or who know people in practice, we did our best to get the message out for today. And I think we sold out. We only had 500 seats planned because we weren't quite sure. But there are others, and we'll send out a recording that you can share because we want other people to hear the message. So we ask you to pass that along if you feel it's been beneficial to you and you think it can be beneficial to others. So thanks for joining us and thanks for listening. I'm going to go to the next slide, and I'd like to take an opportunity to plug DevRite for really helping us along here. Paul and I had great ideas, great concepts. We probably could have done a live webcam on our own, but this team stepped up and made it as professional as you see it, and it's because of them. And anybody who's an industry partner out there, I have to tip my hat to DevRite. I've been working with them for years. They're phenomenal at speaker development. They've added virtual presentations as the newest leg of their speaker development program, and they work with companies to be able to bring you to the forefront. So if you're a practitioner or somebody in the dental industry from a team side, you probably see programs that they put together and you're wowed by it. I know I am. But if you're a company and you're not quite sure how to really jump into this new virtual phase of what we're doing, I encourage you to reach out to Brody and Will and the entire team, because I would endorse them 100%. And I thank you guys for being so generous and helping us today.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Gino. It's been amazing so far to be working with you guys. And I know that there's been a lot of questions that have come up throughout the course of this meeting. And so we're going to share some of those questions and have a chance for you guys to answer them. Obviously, we had a question from Marianne Lester about the insurance code, PPP, and whether or not there'll be some type of code related to that. I don't know if we have that answer yet, but I wanted to put it out there as maybe Howard or someone in the group could formulate an answer to that. Also a question from Canada about whether or not these savings could be passed on to Canadians. Gino, do you know any restrictions there?
I guess I would say it depends on the industry partner, Brody. For certain, if they're operating in Canada, then I would imagine it would apply. And so it's partner by partner. And maybe what we'll do is we'll take note of that, and we'll find out. Some of the companies may just be operating in the U.S. is what I'm saying. So I just need to understand where their reach is, and we'll definitely get back to the subscriber group and let them know.
Yeah, Paul, you have something on that?
Well, I would say that if you can do it in Canada, instead of a 30% discount, it'll probably be 45% with the exchange rate.
There we go. All right. And a question was put forward about getting the necessary PPE equipment to reopen. And I think that's something that would be directed towards Gino and talking about Supply Clinic and how they can provide help there. Gino?
Yeah, I would definitely go to their site. Here's what I know. The companies that have worked very hard to be able to identify sources for PPE are companies like Supply Clinic, and I'm sure there are others, but I would say go to the website. I know they have a dedicated page to it, but you have to plan ahead because it may take a couple of weeks to really get things delivered to you. So you can't ask for something to be FedEx that's PPE because of the demand. So it takes planning and preparation. The other thing I would say is I would probably defer to Howard on this one. I don't know what the PPE requirements are going to be. And so I wouldn't want people making an enormous investment in things that later we find maybe can't be returned and can't necessarily or don't necessarily apply to the guidelines. So I'm a business guy, and I think that you should be prepared for it. But I just want to make sure that people aren't out there making investments in something that they're not going to be able to utilize. Does that help, Brody?
Yeah, I think so. A couple questions, and our team, Adam Hamilton and the DevRight answer team, is answering some of these on the Q&A session in case you have questions that you missed. One of them was, will this lecture be available for review? Of course, we're going to share that out on a YouTube channel. So when we do a follow-up email with everybody that registered, you'll get a link to that and you'll be able to watch it again. It will have all of the dialogue and all the slides that have been shared here. Gino, question from Delat Hasso about what does DMDC stand for?
Oh, very good. Thanks. So DMD is an acronym for Dental Market Direction, because we know we're going in a new direction, and it's our dental marketplace. And so we decided DMD, and then Consortium is, the folks at the table, or as Paul puts it, the knights at the table. So yeah, Dental Market Direction Consortium.
Yeah. A question from Tom and Carol Baker. Will DMD Consortium be individualized at different levels of practice income, implants versus perio practices? Maybe to Paul.
Yeah.
Yes, this is not a cookie cutter approach. If it is, it's pretty much useless. And there's too much of that out there, too much noise. Our goal, put simply, is to do what everybody needs to do to get open, have basic concepts that will apply to everybody, and then really customize approaches to help different people in their situations, whether it's specialty, whether it's the practice environment, et cetera, to basically get into the DNAs of the practices so that we can give them what they need. There's too much cookie cutter noise out there. There's some basics, but everything diverges pretty quickly as you look at individual situations. And we'll have a whole cadre of available approaches depending on what applies to different people.
And there's a lot of unanswered questions out there, and I think the team here doesn't have them all because just as they are, they're unanswered. A question may be posed of, how fast can I get PPP, or what about if it's back ordered? And obviously that would be an industry partner question as far as how fast they can get it. But I think a lot of these are great questions. And as this group moves forward and continues to develop, those questions will be answered by the partners that come in. And that would be my guess. Obviously a question of, updates on from Chuck Harper on aerosol risk to teams, negative pressure. Are we going to need isolation, volume, special evacs? And I think those probably I could go to Paul with that. Say, we don't know the answers for all that because they haven't come down with them. Would you agree, Paul?
Absolutely. We don't know the answers yet. We know some answers to best practices, of course, and things we should be doing. Some of these other things, I would echo what Gino said, which is we need to get some answers before we go out and start getting things in a panic. We need to see what makes sense and what's actually going to work for our patients. And I hate to say this, a lot of it is going to be looking at ourselves and looking at the protocols we've used before, which in most, at least many offices, were deficient to start with, but we got away with them. And I think if we can go in and get things in line with what we have now, we're already going to be 85% of the way there, and then augment as we learn the rules. Some things are common sense.
Yeah. And, again, a couple other questions on back orders, and then the next event that Gino was promoting on May 1st, and whether or not it's too early to have that. A question by AJ Setya of, if these things are back ordered, is this event to it? I think it would be opposite of that. It would be this event needs to happen so that you can know what your options are, so more quickly you can get in line to order the back orders. And I think that you would agree, Gino, with that.
Yeah, Brody, I guess, and I would defer to Howard too, right? Because I think, and I may not have sort of teed him up, but he's intimately involved in what these new regs are going to be. So he sort of has an idea of what's coming. And I think one of the things he's going to do for us on the 4th is give us insight to that. And if it's not finalized, then he's going to be forthright. But there's no question that safety and opening the practice in a safe environment is priority number 1. That's why we put it first. And, if you wait until the day that it's all buttoned up, then you're too late, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yes, Paul, go ahead.
Just one thing, Gino just underscored, and you did with the question, what our purpose and our strength is here. With Howard, we've got a leader in that field. Other people that we've brought in are leaders in different areas to offer advice and suggestions before anybody can find them. So that's the strength here, is people like Howard and other people. And that's why we're in a unique position to get open the right way.
A number of questions came up, Tom Baker and Louis Franzetta and a few others about the state requirements versus the ADA, and what about following the ADA guidelines. And I think one important thing that is often missed is that people say, well, I'm going to follow the ADA and open or do this or that on this date and all. And as we know, as dentists, your state dental boards, or whatever board governs you, is the one that actually is going to make that decision. So whether or not we were not going to put out the ADA says this is what you should be doing right now. It'll be guidelines brought by Howard or Paul or Gino or whoever it may be. And as far as a state by state, I'm assuming that Howard would be able to, canvass that information and be able to put it forward. Do you agree, Paul and Gino?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that we went through a number of questions here. If you have additional questions, you can post them here. We have a team that's answering those live, so you can look at the live answers as well. When this information goes out, when we do a recap, and we have an article that we're going to share with you guys that was posted to Gino and shared with him by a clinician. These questions and the answers will be included in that, so you can see the questions and see what the answers were. So you get a full recap on that. And again, when this goes up live on YouTube, you'll get a link to that to share with your team members, your doctors, your hygienist, whoever it may be, who may have more information. Gino, the website will be going live at what time?
Well, we're shooting for May 1st, but hopefully beforehand. So I think if it goes up earlier, we'll definitely blast everybody to let them know that it's open earlier, and we'll take it from there. And Brody, I don't know if we're at the point of close, but I wanted to share something, and I'm sure Paul may want to make a closing comment too. Are we at that point or no?
It's up to you. You're the host.
Okay. Well, I was hearing Paul's message about the folks who've been writing and they sort of downtrodden, and I'm just going to go back to I guess it's my grandfather, who I never met, was an immigrant, and he came to Massachusetts and he started an ice and oil company. So ice blocks that were brought up to people's houses for their refrigeration, and he also had an oil company. And during the Depression, he would walk through his neighborhood and he had customers that stopped buying from him. And he approached one guy and said, hey, what did I do wrong? Why are you no longer buying? And the guy looked down at his feet and he was embarrassed. And he said, well, I really can't afford to get the fuel. So we're just bundling together and we're, wearing sweaters and everything. And he goes, no. He goes, we're going to deliver that today. And he says, and when you can pay me, you pay me. Now, it's a great story. And my mother shared it with me, right, to tell me how great my grandfather was that I never met. I'm sure he was a smart businessman, but I'm sure he was a generous businessman. And you can't do that for everybody. But I know that from the Great Depression to now, there are things that we can do. And there are things that I think this consortium is doing. And so I think about my grandfather that I never met. And I know that Paul and I and Brody, you're in the same lane, are people who are committed to helping others. And we're going to do that. And we know that we're not going to be perfect along the way. The ice might melt and the oil might smell a little bit, but just keep us honest, right? Give us feedback, and we're going to do everything we can to fuel you. All right.
Well, thank you, Gino. Thank you, Paul and Bill Ryan, for jumping in, and Mike Varello and Howard Pektovis, and the entire team of people who put this together. There's a group that are inaugural members already that have shared and are already working behind the scenes. So we're excited to see that group bring forward whatever it is that meets the needs of this consortium and the people who sign up. Now, Paul, any final thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of things. The first one is to echo Gino and thank Dev Wright and Brody. I mean, I'm not the easiest guy to work with. And Brody put this together pretty quickly and did a lot of work here to get this going. And Dev Wright is really amazing. They've been with us for a lot of years on a smaller level and now on a larger level, and I wanted to thank you for that. The second thing is, well, I mean it. The second thing is what Gino said. I mean, look, we got into this profession for a reason. And the day we stop helping people who were less fortunate is the day we shouldn't be doing this anymore. And yeah, we all want to make a living. We want to do fine, but we have an opportunity to really help people here. And I think we need to do it. And for these people who are naysayers, I'm not going to get this right because I'm paraphrasing it. But the great poet Dante said, in the middle of our lives, we are walking in the midst of darkness and despair. And then we left the woods and looked at the stars again. And that's our choice, whether we do that or not. Thanks, Brody.
Thank you, guys. Well, look for follow-up emails and additional information coming out on the May event, as well as the launch of the website. Have a wonderful week.